Welcome to the session. Today we have a good podcast with a special guest. She is none other than Mariana. She is a multi-talented person. She is a pharmacist. She is into choreography. She is a good dancer. And today we are going to explore what exactly is new form of dance is and how will connect to the nature. We all think that dance is a kind of body rhythm, but are we going to connect this body rhythm with nature rhythm? That is what is our discussion today. We are all with so much of stress, anxiety. We do have some sleep issues. We do have some kind of tension in the mind. So, if this kind of dance practice is done, what Mariana assures is that definitely we will be coming out of the stress. We will be able to resolve all our issues in a practical manner. So let us know what exactly is this form of dance and what exactly is the variation we are going to get in our daily life. So I request all of you to listen to this podcast till the end and please do like, comment, and share this podcast because this is an innovative podcast which deals with art and lifestyle. Because we all started this podcast series mainly focusing on education, healthcare, and lifestyle. Today we are going to discuss about the lifestyle related topic.
Mhm.
Thank you, Miriam, for accepting my invitation. So
Yes.
you are a multi-talented person.
Mhm.
Please let me know what is your journey. Please introduce yourself to my audience.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a big pleasure to be connected. So my background comes mostly from healthcare. I started working as a pharmacist. I studied pharmacy at King's College in London, and then I worked in the molecular microbiology sector in the labs in Brazil. And then after that, I worked for some time with hospital settings in a community pharmacy setting as well. My expertise was working with people with disabilities, people with addictions, and also people with hormonal problems. Later on, I moved into dance, which was my passion since I was a kid. I was always been dancing and moving around and playing sports, and then choreography. So right now, I'm a performer and choreographer, and I'm mixing my knowledge from the pharmacy background. So working in pharmacy with people with different hormonal problems and long-term autoimmune conditions as well is what inspired me to create this method. Um, I notice how contemporary society is so far away from the natural rhythms of the environment, in contrast to animals. I grew up on an island in Greece, and I was always observing how animals and fishermen and farmers were in connection with the natural cycles, and how far we are from this in contemporary society. Everyone is like in so much stress. We have very high rates of depression. We have high rates of anxiety. And I was like, how can I bring these natural rhythms of people living in nature in villages back to like our system? And then this created this interdisciplinary connection with background, with the pharmacy background and dancing. And the start of the practice was during my masters at the place in London. I did a masters in dance performance, and I started to create my own method. This method takes elements from my background in dancing, also my background in capoeira, a Brazilian martial art, and of course the background in health. And the aim is to bring people more in touch with their natural rhythms and more in touch with what's happening in the body and the mind. The circadian bodies, if you wanted to explain it in more simple terms, it comes from an ancient Greek word. word kirkadios, rhythmos. Kirkadios is the circadian, rhythmos is rhythm. So rhythmos is also something that we repeat a lot in percussive instruments, for example. And it's an embodiment practice that is very diverse. So we use movement from different traditions. We use a lot of spiral movements. We use a lot of waves that are inspired from the sea waves. We use a lot of obviously meditation practices and imagery that comes from nature most of the times, and we emphasize the preparation of the body for what is going to happen in the day. So each of us sets an intention for the day, what's going to happen, and on the activities that we're going to use. So, for example, if on the day I know that I'm going to be more sat on an academic setting, or if I want to be sat on my office, I would start the day with things that would really like focus on the back of the spine, on the neck, on the lower back, on the center to engage things that need to keep us active in these kind of positions. If I know that the person is going to be working on the land, like a farmer, um, or someone that is going to be like taking ropes from the sea, we would obviously work on different preparations of the body. So the approach a lot of time integrates games, playfulness, which is something I'm very interested in playing, and encouraging the mind and the body to function as a very unified entity. Like mind and body is one thing; it's very holistic. Um, and all this is regulated by our circadian rhythms. So the rhythms that are naturally existing in all mammals, in all animals, and they are regulated by the sun. So the light is entering our eyes. Immediately, it affects all the production of melatonin, which is a hormone of the sleep, and cortisol, and all this cycle of hormones. So that's a little recap of the practice background.
Super. So I wanted to know, like you have done your Master of Arts in Dance in
Mm-hmm.
University of Arts, London. So how did you get the admission? What is the process? Like, if anyone wants to join University of Arts, London in
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
particular course, so what is the process, Marianne? Can you please explain?
Um, so I have actually two masters from the UK. One was in Master of Pharmacy, and the second one I did recently was a Masters in Dance Performance from London Contemporary Dance School, the place. And the process for me was as a Greek person that was well, after the Brexit there were a lot of bureaucratic, let's say, issues with the joining, but in terms of the masters you have to undergo usually an audition. So you go through the audition call where you have a lot of tasks to complete, like improvisation tasks, endurance tasks, dancing, martial arts. This particular masters, my mentor and tutor was involved with neuroscience and dance, so there was a lot of neuroscience background in our dance training, and a lot of martial arts background. So we had to audition, and then obviously you need to send the cover letters where you show your motivation, why you want to do it, what are you interested in, and then once all this is accepted by the university, we start the process of the masters. That was very like beautiful 1 year of intense training, like very intense physical, mental, and voice as well. We voice, we use theater training, and we approached it through a very like creative and collaborative perspective. It was a very collaborative and community building space. So if someone would like to attend and do this, there's a lot of really brilliant, of course, workshops to prepare. Also, my practice right now, the Circadian Bodies that I teach online as well, is it would be a nice preparation because this is something that I developed this methodology during this MA. So they're very interconnected in order to kind of build community across the globe and to bring people together with like-minded interests.
So, Mariana, can you please let us know what are these circadian bodies? So,
Mm-hmm.
what
Mm-hmm.
are these circadian bodies and what is circadian rhythm?
Yes, the circadian rhythm is a natural rhythm of the human body that follows the sun and the sleep patterns. So most mammals go to bed when the darkness comes and wake up when the light comes. And this regulates, of course, our nesting, how we nest in our houses, and when we go out in the environment. I come from a very warm place, so we're usually outdoors, like doing things outdoors, dancing outdoors, folk dance. And the circadian rhythms are regulated by the sun, by the exposure of our retina to the sun, and of course, and all the hormones like melatonin is increased during the night, is decreased when we wake up and we are exposed to the sun during the day. And there are internal processes that regulate our sleep-wake cycle. Of course, these affect movement. So, movement during the daytime, when we wake up, we usually start with something more gentle, something more to preparing, let's say, for the day, something more caring. And then during the middle of the day, our body has more energy. We are more activated. We are more, ready to do things. We have this readiness, this eagerness to move and to explode, let's say. And during this time, the circadian bodies practice would be different. I usually change the practice depending on when we do it. In the night, we have things that are more relaxing, things that are more grounding to prepare us for bed so that we don't have so much energy when we go to bed. And so we try to also avoid screens, we try to avoid things that might activate again our eyes. And then it's important to know where we are in the globe. So right now I'm in Scotland. I'm in a very like far away from the equator place. So the daylight here is very long. The day starts at like 4 a.m. and we have light until 12 a.m. So actually, we have only 4 hours of darkness, and that creates a lot more energy. We are more activated. We're outdoors a lot. So we try to explore how these natural rhythms are connected with movement, and a lot of times these are having seasonal changes. So in the winter, um, where we have like in the northern hemisphere we have cold, the light might be less. The practice of circadian bodies would be more gentle, more comfort, more things that are like close to each other. In the summertime, it would be something different. It would be more playful, would be more bigger movements, explosive movements, maybe more acrobatics. And to like recap, I would say that we investigate. There's a lot of investigation, and there's a lot of synchronization with what is going on with seasonal changes. There is also, I would say, a big influence of the environment. I'm very interested in studying the environment of what is going on around me. So a lot of times, I encourage my students and myself. I go a lot to play outdoors with the sand. So right now I have access to beaches, so I love to play with the sand, the water element. Maybe sometimes we try to move inside the water. What is the influence of the grass? What is the influence of a rocky beach? And how do our feet touch the ground and expand in the ground? Because a lot of times we wear shoes. We are always constrained in environments where, we don't have access to being grounded. So I'm very interested in grounding and sometimes tools, like how can we play with the branch of a tree? How can we hang from the branch or use it to stretch the back? Or use the branch as a way of a different arm, like connection with a different arm. Um, so yes, this is a perspective of playfulness that actually I got inspired about it through capoeira, which is a Brazilian martial art that has a lot to do with moving outdoors, moving a community. So, in simple terms, I would say these are the main things: the tools, the environmental constraints, playfulness, and of course, being holistic, being in touch with our environment.
Yeah, being in touch with the environment is the need of the day, Mariana, because we are very much disconnected with the environment. And I'm very happy that your form of art makes us connected with the environment. That is what is needed for us to come out of this stress and anxiety and several other issues that present day of human is facing. So, Mariana, can you please let us know what is permaculture? So, what
Mhm.
exactly?
Hmm. Yeah, so permaculture or permacultura, as we say, also we use this term a lot in Greece. It's sustainable farming, sustainable agriculture. So we go forward actually with going back to what was happening before the modern revolution of like farming. We go back to the roots of how we used to do things in a holistic way and without using so many pesticides, so many chemicals. And in permaculture, we are interested in a lot in how the plants help each other grow. So if you make a natural garden, like it would like happen automatically in nature, each plant is helping each other. So we're interested in how to plant things that are helping each other grow, like a community with human beings. And this is something that is again becoming kind of political in my side, because this is a space for things to grow naturally, and it's a space for things and plants to be in one with the human beings. Like because we are humans, it doesn't mean that we are above the whole ecosystem. We are seeing in permaculture that there is no pyramid, but there is a sphere where everything interacts with each other in a very harmonious way. And this is what obviously was very prevalent in Greek medicine, where I come from an island with a lot of healing practices and herbalism. So my pharmacy background is what connected me to this herbalism and how all these herbs are part of our everyday routine. Like we would harvest them from the mountain, we would use them to make teas, to make pies, to make natural remedies. And this experience is also a big has a big importance in capoeira as well, because it's a form of art that is very connected to the plants and to the environment. And I would say in a further context of history and society, that right now our bodies are part of it, and we are part of cultural archives, trying to preserve those herbs, trying to preserve those lands, try to preserve the stories of lands in permaculture. And for me, a big element of it is the rituals, because permaculture is connected to rituals of harvesting, repetition, steps, things that are repeated. And a lot of times I love to observe in my choreography and art how farmers are harvesting the land, how fishermen are getting the sea from the sea. I come from a family of winemakers. Like where I come from, my grandfather had the biggest like winemaking in the area. So I grew up as a child observing how they step on the grapes in order to produce the juices, how each season would give something else. In September, we would do something else. In October, other things would happen in the land. So every of the seasons would have its own dancing. Like people would come together to celebrate and to actually they would come together to celebrate, but also heal from their problems, heal from things that are, like the status quo, maybe wars. So they would come together to be with the land and also to be with each other and make a revolution maybe through that.
That's very so. What inspired you to learn this way of dancing, which connects natural movements with body rhythms? So, who inspired you? What inspired you to get into this?
Hmm. I think my biggest form of inspiration, um, apart from the nature and observing the animal kingdom, which is a big part of my practice, animalistic movement, is also a lot of my mentors. So a lot of my mentors in contemporary dance, they would, like in Greece, they would be using a lot of folk elements of dancing, and also my mentor in capoeira, my teacher and master in capoeira. So these two worlds for me were my big inspirations: contemporary dance in connection to folk dance, and capoeira. Then a big inspiration, I would say, is my patients, people I worked with in settings of. I work a lot of times, as I mentioned before, in settings with vulnerable communities. So I work with refugees in Greece, coming from the war from Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Ukraine, right now Palestine, and there is a big inspiration for me from these people because I see how they bring their dances with them. They cannot bring clothes, they cannot bring toys for the kids, they can't bring a lot of things. What they could bring were their dances. And a lot of times these dances were what they would make them to come together, and I would see a smile again in their faces because a lot of times these people could not smile after all this war trauma. So they were big inspiration for me to observe how they would come together, how would they use dance as a form of healing and a form of resistance and a form of educating us. And they try to find new homes wherever, somewhere in the west, somewhere in north, and the dance that they would do would be something that I would always love to watch and to learn. Um, so my biggest inspirations, I think, are these three different worlds, which I now try to bring into one. And there is also an element of inspiration that I always receive from my ancestors, from my family. I grew up in a very traditional Greek society, and my first images would be my grandparents dancing in weddings or baptizing of kids or natural in the natural environment, usually in the on villages on the mountains. And these mountain dances are actually war dances. A lot of times they would come from war dances. We would create these steps in order to like make sound, make a lot of make a fuss, like make a hustle, so that people, the enemy, let's say, someone very far, could hear us. So there's this element of bumping, stomping, percussive playing, and a lot of times the element of ecstasy. Like we would go into ecstasy by repetition and exhaustion. So this exhaustion and repetition that comes from the steps would help a lot of people go into this ecstasy mode and go out of this human terrain, but and try to connect with the gods. For whatever god everybody believes in, or whatever, maybe that is nature for some people. So yeah, the last source of inspiration I would say is my ancestors and how I would observe them going into these dances.
So Mary, here I wanted to know how does we move body according to the cycles of the day, time of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So can you
Yes.
give some important
Mm.
pointers on this?
Of course. So the times of the day, we are like as animals, we are regulate our nervous system knows how to adjust. We are usually seeking comfort and nesting during the night because it's something that when the light goes down, we would seek a place to hide and a place to nest and be with our beloved ones and a safe spot. And our nervous system is also familiar with being activated when there is light and when there is access to daytime heat and outdoor spaces. So the movements that we would be doing in the day would be things that are open, things that are opening our chest. Also in yoga in India, there's a lot of you are the pioneers of this because everything that is opening has to do with like access to the sun. How we are open to the sun, we are open to the elements. When we are in the more evening kind of set, evening routine, we would do things that are more closed, more connected to the inner self, more connected maybe to positions of sleeping, positions of like curving. Um, so the different times of the day would affect our practice. In the circadian bodies, a lot of the practice has to do with the grounding. So we try to find our roots, really strong positions of grounding that come from martial arts, and a lot of times upside down positions. So we try to bring ourselves into handstands, into exploring acrobatic move to try to get over our fear, which is something that can be used as a metaphor in life later on. So a lot of my students tell me, oh, like I managed in 1 month to do something that I couldn't do for years, because we play a lot with this element of playfulness. So we get out of the comfort zone, and this playfulness and connection with other human beings brings us closer to fighting for things that we always want to do. So someone might be more confident to fight for something they really want in their life, like to pursue a PhD, or to like try to find this job and seek this career that they were always scared to do, because they start to like slowly finding the roots, being stronger, being more balanced, and being more resilient with the environment. So there's this element of like resilience, being in tune, and being in a constant rhythm. I love also to play percussion. I love singing. So these are elements that I incorporate in the circadian bodies. And of course, playing rhythms and play percussion is something that activates us, something that I use during the day. Another element that is kind of, I would say, like regulates our systems is writing. For me, creative writing is a big part of the practice. So I use creative writing as a way of tuning in with the self and tuning in with the mind. And I usually start or finish the session with creative writing. So this is like another element of it.
Yeah. So why do you think it is very important to pay attention on the main part that our body and nature are connected? So why do you think it is very important to pay attention on that part? What kind of
Hmm.
new experiences will we get? What kind of changes do we experience when we feel that we and nature are connected? And with this
Hmm.
form of dance, can we feel that?
Yes, the importance of attention is something that's actually in the current society, our attention span is so small because of all the social media, all the different stimuli, advertisements, all those things happening. So attention is something that is a big skill. And I heard someone saying the quote that love nowadays, the showing attention to someone is the biggest form of love. So attention is firstly inwards for me, and this is something that I do with dancing and moving and being really attentive to what is my intuition saying, what are my dreams when I wake up. There's this element of attention to the inner sphere and then attention to the outer sphere. So attention to other human beings, attention to the environment, attention to the animals, attention to the architecture of the place where I am, of the city I am. So this instantly creates a form of observation and a form of science, because science has always been about observing and like experimenting. So experimenting is like for me playing and experimenting with other human beings. And what this can mean in terms of like what changes I see in humans patterns. I see a lot of times people getting healed by being so attentive. Like they immediately become grounded. They become I would say less concerned with things. They become more playful, and a lot of times we see changes in autoimmune disorders. So I myself suffer from an autoimmune condition. I have a Crohn's syndrome. And for me, I managed to stop my medication because of movement and dancing and doing this method. Because immediately my gastrointestinal system was regulated, because I was more in touch with the environment. I was following a more holistic way of life. I managed to find movements that would really heal my body. So a lot of people that follow these patterns, these movement exercises, they see that they have a big change in the way they sleep. They sleep in a more they sleep longer hours, and usually they wake up naturally. They don't need any alarm. They wake up naturally because they start to be regulated with the sun. And there's a lot of change, of course, in anxiety levels and depression levels. I think 70% of humans at some point in our lives we experience depression. So the movement in nature immediately creates endorphins, and these endorphins can really balance our cortisol levels. They increase our serotonin, our dopamine, and because we use a lot of contact, we use a lot of contact improvisation exercises. This can also enhance oxytocin, I think, which is the hormone of the hug. So we find that there is an element of balance in all aspects of life: sleep, gastrointestinal problems, human connection, grounding, and I would say also the element of expressive voice. So for me, voice was another aspect that I wasn't using as a. I trained with classical dance. I started my classical dance training when I was 5 with ballet, and we were always interested in the form and elegance. We were not so much interested in expressing our voice, and this is something I really want to bring. That each person that comes to me or comes to join Circadian Bodies has a voice and they want to express themselves. Like, what is their real self? What is their real movement? We're not interested in perfection so much. Like, what is a perfect body? No, it's open to all bodies, all weights, all abilities, and all voices. So a lot of times we would sing together, or we would play music and sing in um, at the same time moving.
So that's real. So can you please tell me, like, what simple things can a human do to be
Yes.
very much playful, to be very natural, to be connected with the environment? So what are the simple things in everyday's life that one can practice to be very rhythmic, to be very active, to be
Yes.
playful? So any suggestions from your side?
Yes. From my side, I would say coordinate with the elements, coordinate with the sun, the water, the air, the earth. I mean, that might sound very, I don't know, spiritual or far away, but it's actually very simple. Even in the big city, we can try to see, we might find one tree, we see how this tree is different over the seasons. How are the leaves today? What is the color? And how can this color or the movement of the leaves inspire me to move in a certain way? Also, I would say observe, try to observe the wisdom of our ancestors, our mentors. I have a lot of mentors in life that I'm inspired with, and teachers. How are these people experiencing their art form, whatever their art is, whatever their practice is, and try to take something out of it. Try to take, not in a way of consuming it, but to be inspired, to write it down and like maybe go the next day and play with it. And for me, listen to each other, listen to other humans, engage the senses, the touch, engage the smell, hug each other. Go back to the use of our traditional and contemporary, of course, art forms. And listen, the active listening is also listen the cultural history. What is the space and the time that we live in is telling us? What is the architecture, as I mentioned before? What is the architecture of the buildings that we are in telling us? Like when I'm being very nomadic, the past 2 years of my life I've lived in South America, Central America, in places in Europe. What is the architecture of the mountains or of the buildings where I am? This, of course, changes my way of moving. It's not the same when I'm in Brazil, when everything is wet and hot, and when I'm here, like now in Scotland. And I would say another simple thing that people can do is to study the gestures, study the simple things like the hands. Every society has different gestures, and for me, that's a form of choreography. Just to observe these gestures and how people communicate. And maybe this is going to help us also have less war and less conflict, because as soon as we start to observe all these things, we are curious and we want to learn from each other instead of fighting each other. These differences unify us, in my perspective. And the last thing I would say in terms of the simple changes that we can do is how we can observe gravity. Like for me, gravity is always there. It's a force that exists on this planet so much that it's so inspiring to see how we fall, how we fall on the floor, how babies fall and roll. And a lot of times I use gravity in my classes to teach how people fall and how we prevent injuries in this way. Because most actually, like hip fractures and hip injuries, come from falling. So we are interested in falling safely and also in weight sharing. This is used a lot in contact improvisation. Steve Paxton was a pioneer choreographer who started this method. And in these exercises, we are interested in how we share the weight. So, how two different human beings can share their weight. And this is very beautiful metaphorically because this can help us think, how can I share my weight, the weight I carry in my shoulders in my life, with someone else? And then this weight immediately becomes smaller and we feel more empowered. So I would say these elements for me would be a really big change, would make a huge change in people's lives as soon as they follow.
Yeah, you mentioned about fall prevention strategies.
Yes.
Especially old age people, they have the tendency of falling. They
Mm.
they don't have that much connectivity with the floor. They slip, they fall
Mm.
down. So, can these kind of practices prevent all these old generation people to fall? If they fall, also to fall nicely so that they don't injure more.
Mm.
Possible,
Yeah.
Maria?
Actually, falling has a lot of causes. Falling in elderly can be related to motor neuron system, or it can be related to arthritis and injuries. It can be related to disorientation and balance, and also to a lot of side effects from medications. And dementia patients are right now. I'm working in London with a lot of dementia patients in care homes, and also dementia and confusion can be a cause of falling. So I'm not saying we have the solution like of all medicine to falling, but it's when you learn to be working with abstracted movement, abstraction, and not just two-dimensional, like in the gym, like we do two-dimensional movements. But in this practice, we do movements that are more abstracted, more irregular, more unpredictable. And this creates the human brain learns that when you fall on this like irregular way, you're not going to twist your ankle because your body has been in this position before and can predict and remembers. The human brain is so clever, so it remembers when it falls on the pavement. It's not going to be so prone to twisting, let's say, the ankle because it has already been to this in the class, or it has been on a rock trying to balance itself on the rock and trying to move other body parts on this rock or the beach. So this is a very beautiful way of training our systems in order to be adaptable. And adaptability, we know from Darwin's theory and all the like genetics and DNA evolution. Adaptability is what brought us to where we are. We need to be adaptable as organisms in order to survive. So yes, there's definitely a lot of a big effect on the injury prevention, and that is also something that I think comes with happiness. Like when we have so many endorphins and we are happy in connection with others, we immediately become more confident. We become more aware of the environment. We become more streetwise. What is around us? We are ready to act in this context.
Yeah. Mariana, you are a choreographer. You are really enjoying your art. So, what kind of advice you want to give to the new generation or the very young generation who want to enter into the field of choreography? What kind of advice you want to give?
I would say one message and one advice to the young generation is to create new stories through new bodies. So reinvent our body, reinvent new stories, new storytelling, and share it with each other, and emphasize the creation of narratives that emerge through our diversity, how different we are from each other, but also the contemporary issues. Like, for example, there's so much ongoing discourse, ongoing conflict. Maybe we should focus the new generation in order to bring a positive change on the cultural exchange, on the representation that we have in public spaces. We can take the streets with our bodies, with our dances, and open broader conversations about the role of dancing, the role of movement, the role of health and holistic living in expressing and addressing the current contemporary problems that exist in our world. And I believe through this we can achieve healing, we can achieve resistance, we can achieve um, community. Community. I mean, I know that there is a word that everybody talks about community right now, and it might sound a bit, très banal, but it's something that it's for me increases so much the sense of belonging and the sense of wellness. and wellness comes a lot from being shared experience. And of course, I would say one last thing is to foster understanding. This all comes to like foster understanding of each other, and first of all understanding of the self, the inner self, and then the understanding of each other.
Super, Mariana. Thank you so much. You have provided so many valuable insights. This is a very new topic. Most of the people are unaware of this. Because of you, only we came to know about this. Connecting the body rhythm with natural rhythm is very, very important in the current day of living. Thank you so much, Mariana. It was really
Yeah.
awesome to talk to you. And hopefully, this podcast will help many people to be very much balanced in their life and be more successful in their life. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good weekend. Bye bye.